and it's chapter 16. That's it. Stevie Ray had stopped, looking uncomfortable and apologetic in front of the steps that led to a round brick building situated on a little hill overlooking the eastern part of the wall surrounding the school. Huge oaks wrapped it in darkness, and within darkness, so I could barely make out flickers of either gas or candles lighting up the entrance. Not one speck of light was coming from the darkened windows that were long and arched and seemed to be made of stained glass. Okay, well, thanks for the Tums. I tried to sound brave and save a place for me. This really can't take that long. I should be able to get done and join you guys for dinner. Don't rush, really. You might meet someone you like and want to hang out. Don't worry if you do. I won't be mad, and I'll just tell Damien and the twins that you're uh, re- recon- reconnoitering. What is Nimbus doing? Just caught him out of the corner of my eye. He's going mad, isn't he? What's he doing? Is he popcorning? Sorry to interrupt. I'm not going to become one of them, Stevie Ray. I believe you, she said, but her eyes looked suspiciously big and round. He's not caught on something, is he? Is he just excited? Sorry. I will, I'll check on him. Be back in 2 seconds. Ooh. No, he's what we call on his funny half hour. That's all he's doing. He's just being a menace. So I'll see you soon. Okay, see you soon, she said, and started to follow the sidewalk back to the main building. I didn't want to watch her walk away. She looked all forlorn and spanked puppy-like. Instead, I climbed up the steps and told myself that this wasn't going to be any big deal. Nothing worse than the time my Barbie sister talked me into going to cheerleading camp with her. I don't know what the hell I'd been thinking. At least this fiasco wouldn't last a week. They'll probably cast another circle, which was actually very cool, do some unusual praying like Neferit did, and then break up for dinner. That would be my cue to smile nicely and slip out. Easy peasy. The torches on either side of the thick wooden door were lit by gas, and not the raw flame sconces used in Nyx's temple. I reached my hand toward the heavy iron knocker, but with a sound that was disturbingly like a sigh, it opened from my touch. Merry meet, Zoe. Oh my God, it was Eric. He was wearing all black, and his dark, curly hair and his insanely blue eyes reminded me of Clark Kent. Well, okay, without the dorky glasses and the nerdy, slicked back hair. So, suppose that would mean that he actually reminded me again of Superman. Well, without the cape or tights or the big S. When the babble in my mind totally shut itself up, his his oil-dampened finger slipped over my forehead, tracing the 5 points of the pentagram. Blessed be, he said. Blessed be, I replied, and would be eternally grateful that my voice didn't croak or crack or squeak. Ah, man, he smelled good, but I couldn't place what he smelt like. It wasn't any of the tried, overused colognes guys buy by the gallon. He smelled like he smelled like the forest the night after it's rained. Something earthy and clean, and You can come on in, he was saying. Oh, thanks, I said brilliantly. I stepped inside, and then I stopped. The interior was all one big room. The circular-shaped walls were draped in black velvet, totally blocking the windows and the silver moonlight. I could see that under the heavy curtains there were weird shapes, which started to freak me out until I realized that, hello, it's a rec room. They must have shoved the TVs and game stuff to the side of the room and covered them, so everything would look, well, creepier. Then my attention was captured by the black circle itself. It was situated in the middle of the room and made up entirely of candles in tall, red glass containers, like the prayer candles that you can buy in the Mexican food section of the grocery store, and smelled like roses and old ladies. There must have been more than 100 of them. They lit up the kids who were standing in the loose circle around them, talking and laughing with a ghostly light that was tainted with red. The kids were all wearing black, and I noticed right away that none of them were wearing any embroidered rank insignias, but each had a thick silver chain that glittered around their necks, from which an odd symbol dangled. It looked like two crescent moons positioned back to back against a full moon. There you are, Zoe. Aphrodite's voice slipped across the room just ahead of her. She was wearing a long black dress that flashed with onyx beading, reminding me weirdly of a dark version of Neferit's beautiful gown. She had on the same necklace as the others, but hers was bigger and outlined in red jewels that might have been garnets. Her blonde hair was loose and draped around her like a gold veil. She was entirely too pretty. Eric, thanks for making Zoe welcome. I can take it from here. She sounded normal and even rested her manicured fingertips on Eric's arm for a second in what the uninformed might think was just a friendly gesture, but her face told a different story. It was set and cold, and her eyes seemed to blaze into his. Eric barely gave her a look, and he defiantly moved his arm away from her touch, then gave me a quick smile and, without glancing at Aphrodite again, walked away. Great. Exactly what I didn't need was to get in the middle of a nasty breakup. But I couldn't seem to help the fact that my eyes followed him across the room. Stupid me. Again. Sigh. Aphrodite cleared her throat, and I tried, unsuccessfully, not to look like I'd been caught doing something I shouldn't have been doing. Her slick, mean smile said that there was absolutely no doubt that she'd noticed my interest in Eric and his interest in me. And again, I wondered if she knew it had been me in the hall the day before. Well, it wasn't like I could ask her. You don't need to hurry, but I brought something for you to change into. Aphrodite was talking quietly, or quickly, as she motioned for me to follow her to the girls' restroom. She threw me a disgusted look over her shoulder. It's not like you can come into the Dark Daughter's ritual dressed like that. Once we were in the bathroom, she brusquely handed me a dress that had been hanging from one of the partitions and kind of pushed me into the stall. You can put your clothes on the hanger and carry them back to the dorm like that. There didn't seem to be any arguing with her, and, anyway, I felt like an outsider enough as it was. Being dressed differently from everyone else made me feel like I'd shown up to a party and dressed like a duck. But no one had told me that it wasn't a costume party, so everyone else was wearing jeans. I quickly got out of my clothes and slid the black dress over my head, sighing with relief when it fit. It was simple, but flattering. The material was a soft, clingy stuff that never wrinkles. It had long sleeves around the neckline and showed off my shoulders. Good thing I'd worn my black bra. All around my neckline, the edge of the long sleeves, the hem, which was right above my knee, were sewn with little red sparkly beads. It was really pretty. I slipped my shoes back on, thinking happily that a nice pair of ballet flats can go with just about any outfit, and stepped out of the stall. Well, at least it fits, I said, but I noticed Aphrodite wasn't looking at my dress. She was looking at my mark, which bugged the crap out of me. Okay, my mark is coloured in. Get over it already. I didn't say anything, though. I mean, this was her, quote, party, and I was a guest. Translation, I was totally outnumbered, so I better be good. I'll be leading the ritual, of course, so I'm going to be too busy to hold your hand through it. Okay, I should have just kept my mouth shut, but she was wearing on my last nerve. Look, Aphrodite, I don't need you to hold my hand. Her eyes narrowed. I braced myself for another psycho girl scene. Instead, she smiled in a totally non-nice smile that made her look like a snarling dog. Not that I was calling her a bitch, but the analogy seemed scarily accurate. Of course you don't need your hand held. You'll just breeze right through this little ritual like you've breezed through everything else here. I mean, after all, you are Neferit's new favourite. Wonderful. On top of the Eric issue and the weirdness over my Mark issue, she was jealous that Neferit was my mentor. Aphrodite, I don't think that I'm Neferit's new favourite. I'm just new. I tried to sound reasonable. I even smiled. Whatever. So, are you ready? I gave up trying to reason with her and nodded, wishing this whole ritual thing would hurry up and be over. Fine, let's go. She led me out of the restroom and over the circle. I recognized the two girls that we walked up to as the two of the, quote, hags from hell who had followed her around in the cafeteria. Only instead of wearing a pursed face, I just ate a lemon expressions, they were smiling warmly at me. No, I wasn't fooled, but I made a smile face too. When in enemy territory, it's best to blend in and look inconspicuous and slash or stupid. Hi, I'm Enyo, said the taller of the two. She was, of course, blonde, but her long, flowing locks were more of the colour of weaving wheat than gold, or waving wheat than gold. Although in the candlelight it was hard to be sure which cliché was more appropriate of a description, and I still didn't believe that she was a natural blonde. Hi, I said. I'm Dino, said the other girl. She was obviously mixed and had a gorgeous combination of really pretty coffee with lots of cream skin and excellent thick curly hair, which probably had never had the nerve to nap up on her for an instant, no matter the humidity. The two of them were freakishly perfect. Hi, I said again, feeling more than a little claustrophobic. I moved into the space they'd created between them. You three enjoy the ritual, Aphrodite said. Oh, we will, Enyo and Dino said together. The three of them shared a look that made my skin crawl. I turned my attention away from them before my better judgment won over of my pride and bolted from the room, or rather, and I bolted from the room. I had a good view of the inner area of the circle now, and again, it was similar to the one in Nyx's temple, except this one had a chair pulled up beside the table, and there was someone sitting in it. Well, kind of sitting. Actually, the whoever was slumped down with a hood of a cloak covering his or her head. Well, Anyway, the table was draped with the same black velvet as the walls, and there was a goddess statue on it, a bowl of fruit and bread, several goblets and a pitcher, and a knife. I squinted to be sure I was seeing right. Yep, that was a knife, and it had a bone handle and a long, wicked, curving blade that looked entirely too sharp to be used for cutting fruit or bread safely. A girl I thought I recognized from the dorm was lighting several fat sticks of incense that sat in an ornately carved incense holder on the table, and totally ignoring whoever was slumped in the chair. Yeesh, was this kid asleep? Immediately, the air began to fill with smoke, and I swear it was green tinged and curled, ghost like, around the room. I expected it to smell sweet, like the incense at Nyx's temple, but then a feathery wisp of smoke reached me, and I breathed it in, surprised by its bitterness. It was kind of familiar, and I frowned, trying to figure out what it reminded me of. Crap, what was it? It was almost like bay leaf with a clovey middle. I had to remember to thank Grandma Redbird later for teaching me about spices and their smells. I sniffed again, intrigued, and my head felt a little woozy. Weird. Okay, the incense was odd. It seemed to change as it filled the room, like expensive perfume that changes with each person who wears it. I breathed in again. Yep, clove and bay, but there was something at the end of it, something that made the scent finish tangy and bitter, dark and mystic and alluring in its naughtiness. Naughtiness? Then I knew. Well, hell, they were filling the room with pot smoke mixed with spices. Unbelievable. I'd stood up to peer pressure and, for years, had said no to the most polite offers to try one of those gross-looking handmade joints that get passed around at parties and whatnot. I mean, please. It's not even sanitary. And just exactly why would I be doing would I want to do a drug that made me want to obsessively eat fattening snack foods? And now here I stood, immersed in pot smoke. Sigh. Kyla would never believe it. Then, feeling paranoid, probably another side effect of the pot invasion, I looked around the circle. Sure, I'd see a professor who was ready to leap in and haul us all away to I don't know, something unspeakably horrid, like boot camp Maury sends all his troubled teens to. But thankfully, unlike the circle in Nyx's temple, there were no adult vamps here, only about 20 kids. They were talking quietly and acting like it was uh, like the totally illegal marijuana incense was no big deal. Potheads. Trying to breathe shallowly, I turned to the girl on my right. When in doubt or panic, make small talk. So, Dino is well, different name. Does it mean something? Dino means terrible, she said, smiling sweetly. From the other side, the tall blonde chimed in perkily, and Enyo means warlike. Huh, I said, trying hard to be polite. Yeah, Femfirido, which means wasp. That's a cool name, isn't it? Femfirido, which means wasp, is the one lighting the incense, explained Enyo. We've got the names from Greek mythology. They were the three sisters of the Gorgon. Myth says that they were born as hags who shared an eye, but we decided that was probably just bullshit male-dominated propaganda written by human men who wanted to keep strong women down. Really? I didn't know what else to say. Really? Yeah, Dino said. Human men suck. They should all die, Enyo said. On that lovely thought, the music suddenly started, making it impossible, thankfully, to talk. Okay, the music was disturbing. It had a deep, pulsing beat that was ancient as well as modern, like someone had mixed one of those nasty, booty humping songs with a tribal mating dance. And then, much to my shock, Aphrodite began to dance her way around the circle. Yes, I suppose you could say she was hot. I mean, she had a good body, and she moved like Catherine Zeta-Jones in Chicago. But somehow it didn't work for me. And I don't mean because I'm not gay, even though I'm not gay. It didn't work because it seemed like a crude imitation of Neferit's dance to She Walks in Beauty. If this music was a poem, it would be more like Some Hoe Grinds Her Booty. During Aphrodite's crotch flailing display, everyone was naturally staring at her, so I looked around the circle pretending that I wasn't really looking for Eric until, oh crap, I found him almost directly opposite me, and he was the one kid in the room not watching Aphrodite. He was watching me. Before I could figure out whether I should look away, smile at him, or wave, or whatever, Damien said to smile at the kid, and Damien was a self-proclaimed expert on guys. The music stopped, and I looked looked from Eric to Aphrodite. She was standing in the middle of the circle, in front of the table. Purposefully, she picked up a big purple pillar candle in one hand. Sorry for that pause. Holding it in front of her like a beacon. To the side of the circle, where now I noticed that one yellow candle had nestled amongst the red ones. I didn't need any prodding from warlike or terrible to turn to the east. As wind ruffled my hair, from the corner of my vision, I could see that she had lit the yellow candle and now raised the knife, slashing a pentagram into the air as she spoke. O winds of the storm, in Nyx's name, I do call thee forth. Cast thy blessing, I do ask, upon the magic which shall be worked here. Well, I admit she was good, although not as powerful as Neferit. It was obvious that she'd practiced voice control, and the silky sound of her words carried easily. We turned to the south, and she approached the large red pillar candle among the other red ones, and I could feel that I was already recognizing the power of fire, and the magic candle washed over my skin. O fire of lightning, in Nyx's name I do call thee forth, bringer of storms and powerful magic. I ask your aid in this spell, I do here work. We turned again, along with Aphrodite. I felt flushed and unexpectedly drawn to the blue candle that nestled within the red ones. Even though it thoroughly freaked me out, I had to keep myself from stepping out of the circle and joining her in the invocation of water. O torrents of rain, in Nyx's name I do call thee forth. Join me with your drowning strength in performing this most powerful of rituals. What in the hell was wrong with me? I was sweating, and instead of feeling just a little warm, like during the earlier ritual, the mark on my forehead was hot, burning hot, and I swear I could hear the roar of the sea in my ears. Numbly, I turned to the right. O earth, deep and damp, in Nyx's name I do call thee forth, that I may feel the earth here and roar in the roar of the storm of power, which doth come when you aid me in this rite. Aphrodite slashed the air again, and I could feel the palm of my right hand tingle, as if it ached to hold the knife and cut the air. I smelled cut grass and heard the cry of a whippoorwill, like it was nestling visibly in the air beside me. Aphrodite moved back to the centre of the circle, placing the still burning purple candle back in its place in the middle of the table, and she completed the casting. O spirit, wild and free, in Nyx's name I do call thee to me. Answer me, stay with me during this mighty ritual, and grant me thy goddess's power. And somehow I knew what she was going to do next. I could hear the words inside my mind, inside my spirit. When she raised the goblet and began walking around the circle, I felt her words, even though she didn't have the poise and power of Neferit. What she said ignited within me, like I was burning from the inside out. This is the time of the fullness of our goddess's moon. There is significance to this night. The ancients knew the mysteries of this night and used them to strengthen themselves and to split the veil between worlds and to have adventures we only dream about today, secret, mysterious, magical, true beauty and power in vampire form, not tainted by human rules or law. We are not humans. With this, her voice did ring against the walls, very much as Neferit's had earlier. And all your dark daughters and sons ask tonight that this rite is what we have petitioned each full moon for the past year. Free the power within us so that, like the mighty felines of the wild, we know the lithe suppleness of our animal brethren, and we are not bound by human chains or caged by their ignorant weaknesses. Aphrodite stopped right in front of me. I knew I was flushed and breathing hard, just as she was. She raised the goblet and offered it to me. Drink, Zoe Redbird, and join us in asking Nyx for what is ours by the right of blood and body and the mark of the great change, the mark that she has already touched you with. Yes, I know. I should have probably said no, but how? And suddenly, I didn't want to. I definitely didn't like or trust Aphrodite, but wasn't what she was saying basically true? My mother and stepfather's reactions to my mark came back hard and clear in my memory, along with Kyla's look of fear and Drew and Dustin's revulsion, and how no one had called me or even texted me since I'd been gone. They'd just let me be dumped here to deal with a new life all on my own. It made me sad, but it also made me mad. I grabbed the goblet from Aphrodite and took a big drink. It was wine, but it didn't taste like the wine in the other moon ritual. This one was sweet, too. There was a spice to it that tasted nothing like I'd ever experienced before. It caused an explosion of sensation in my mouth that travelled with a hot, bittersweet trail down my throat and filled me with a dizzy desire to drink more and more and more of it. Blessed be, Aphrodite hissed at me as she jerked the goblet from me, sloshing some of the red liquid over my fingers. Then she gave me a tight, triumphant smile. Blessed be, I replied automatically, head still reeling with the taste of the wine. She moved to Enyo, offering her the goblet. I couldn't stop myself from licking my fingers to get more of the taste of the wine that had spilled there. It was beyond delicious, and it smelled familiar. But through the whoosh of dizziness in my head, I couldn't concentrate enough to figure out where I'd smelled something that incredible before. It hardly took any time for Aphrodite to travel around the circle, giving each of the kids a taste of the goblet. I watched her closely, wishing I could have more as she returned to the table. She lifted the goblet again. Great and magical goddess of night and the full moon, she who rides through the thunder of the tempest, leading the spirits and the elder ones, beautiful and awesome one, and even the most ancient must obey. Aid us in what we ask. Fill us with your power and magic and strength. And then she upended the goblet, and I watched jealously as she drank until she drained the last drops. When she finished drinking, the music started up again. In time with it, she made her way back around the circle, dancing and laughing as she blew out each candle and told each element goodbye. And somehow, as she was moving around the circle, my vision got all screwed up because her body rippled and changed. It suddenly seemed as if I was watching Neferit again, only now she was younger, rawer version of the High Priestess. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again, she finally said. We all responded while I blinked my vision clear at the weird image of Aphrodite as Neferit. as did the burning of my mark. But I could still taste the wine on my tongue. It was way strange. I don't like alcohol. Seriously, I just don't like the way it tastes. But there was something about this wine that was delicious beyond, well, beyond even Godvia dark chocolate truffles. I know, it's hard to believe. And I still couldn't figure out why it somehow seemed familiar. But everyone started to talk and laugh as the circle broke up. The gaslights came on overhead, making us blink from their brightness. I looked across the circle, trying to see if Eric Knight was still watching me, and a movement at the table caught my eye. The person who had been slumped and motionless during the entire ritual was finally moving. He kind of jerked around, awkwardly pulling himself more into a sitting position. The hood on the dark cloak fell back, and I was shocked to see the bright orange-red, bushy, unattractive hair and the pudgy, too white and freckled face. It was that annoying Elliot kid. Very, very odd that he was here. Why would the Dark daughters and sons want him? I looked around the room again. Yep, as I suspected, there wasn't one ugly, dorky-looking kid present. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, except Elliot, was attractive. He definitely didn't belong. He was blinking and yawning and looked like he'd been sniffing way too much of the incense. He lifted his hand to wipe something off his nose, probably one of the boogers he liked to go spelunking after, and the white, uh, I saw the white of thick bandages that were wrapped around his wrists. What the? A terrible, crawling feeling worked its way up my spine. Enyo and Dino were standing not far from me, talking animatedly to the girl that they called uh, Femfirdo, Pemfirdo, and walked over to them and waited till there was a lull in conversation. Pretending that my stomach wasn't trying to squeeze itself to death, I smiled and nodded in the general direction of Elliot. What's that kid doing here? Enyo glanced at Elliot and then rolled her eyes. He's nothing, just the refrigerator we used tonight. What a loser, Dino said, dismissing Elliot with a sneer. He's practically human, Pemfirdo said in disgust. No wonder he's good. All that he's good for is a snack bar. My stomach felt like it was being turned inside out. Wait, I don't get it. Refrigerator? Snack bar? Dino the Terrible laughed her haughty, chocolate-coloured, or turned her haughty, chocolate-coloured eyes on me. That's what we call humans. Refrigerators and snack bars. You know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Or any of the meals in between. Warlike Enyo practically purred. I still don't, I started, but Dino interrupted me. Oh, come on. Don't pretend like you couldn't tell what was in the wine, that you didn't love the taste of it. Yeah, admit it, Zoe. It was obvious. You could have downed the whole thing. You wanted it more than we did. We saw you licking it off your fingers, Enyo said, leaning forward all into my personal space and stared at my mark. That makes you some kind of freak, doesn't it? Somehow you're fledgling and vamp all in one. And you wanted more of that kid's blood than just a taste. Blood? I didn't recognize my own voice. The word freak kept echoing around and around in my head. Yes, blood, Terrible said. I felt hot and cold at once, and looked away from their knowing faces and straight into Aphrodite's eyes. She was standing across the room from me, talking to Eric. Our eyes locked, and slowly, purposefully, she smiled. She was holding the goblet again, and raised it in an almost imperceptible salute to me before taking a drink from it and turning back to laugh at something Eric had just said. Holding myself together, I made a lame excuse to Warlike, Terrible, and the Wasp, and walked calmly from the room. The instant I closed the thick wooden door of the rec hall behind me, I ran like a crazy blind person. I didn't know where I was going except that I wanted to be away. I drank blood. That horrid Elliot kid's blood. And I'd liked it. And worse, the delicious smell had been familiar because I'd smelled it before when Heath's hands had been bleeding. He hadn't, um, or it hadn't been a new cologne that I'd been drawn to. It had been his blood. And I'd smelled it again in the hall yesterday when Aphrodite had slit Eric's thigh, and I'd wanted to lick it up. His blood, too. I was a freak. Finally, I couldn't breathe. I collapsed against the cool stone of the school's protective wall, gasping for air and puking my guts up. And that's the end of chapter 16.